Welcome to the webinar, The New Dentist Playbook, Building a Foundation for Long-Term Success. This lecture will be presented by Sable A. Muntean, DMD, MHSA, and we will begin shortly. And now it is my distinct honor to recognize Dr. Sable Muntean. She graduated from Florida's LECOM School of Dental Medicine, earning her Doctor of Dental Medicine and Master in Health Services Administration degrees. She then completed an advanced education in general dentistry residency and an implant fellowship at Southern Illinois University School. In 2022, Dr. Muntean became the first full-time female dentist at the St. Louis VA Hospital and is currently chief editor of Ignite DDS's Get Lit newsletter geared towards the new dentist. And it is my honor to say, take it away, Dr. Muntean.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it. So thank you everyone for attending this evening. I'm very excited to get to share with you a little bit about, my experience as a new dentist and things that I've learned along the way and ways that I can help you all. So you kind of either know what to expect within a few years or maybe you feel the same way or you have some questions. I'm excited to jump in. So thank you, NDX, for having me here and for the honorarium that I have received for the presentation today. I have no financial agreement with any organization that I discuss. So please feel free to ask me any questions that you're interested in, any systems or companies or whatever it is. Like I said, no affiliation, more than happy to talk about them. So a little bit about myself, other than what was already mentioned, but I'm originally from California. I'm from Westlake Village. That's a town close by to Malibu. And I went to USC for undergrad. So fight on if anyone is from the West Coast and likes USC. If you're from UCLA, that's okay. I won't hold it against you. But anyways, I left California and I went over to Florida and I studied at LECOM, earning a master's in health services administration at the same time. And I'm really glad that I did that because it helped me understand the business side of things a little bit more, because those are things that you don't learn about when you're in dental school. And from that, I also very unexpectedly am using a lot of what I learned while now at the VA, something that I didn't even know existed. So this is when I graduated from LECOM. These are my wonderful parents. They're originally from Romania, and so I speak, read, and write Romanian and French as well, but Romanian a lot more fluently than French. And I really, am thankful because my parents have always been my number one supporters. My dad is a dentist as well. He retired, and my mom was, I guess, his office manager because they worked together. But they both retired, and now they're enjoying life, thankfully, and I'm very happy to be waiting for them tomorrow at the airport. So wish us luck with all the flight stuff. But I did that residency, the AEGD. And if you guys have any questions, if maybe you're thinking about specializing, because you can still specialize even after, starting practicing, or if you're interested in going into a residency or anything like that, please feel free to ask if you're trying to understand, AEGD versus GPR. But I did an AEGD program, and then what I really loved about it was that a big portion of the program was dedicated to the first 21 chapters of Pete Dawson's From TMJ to Smile Design. So we got to learn a lot about occlusion and full mouth rehabs. And then after that, I did a fellowship in implants. And you can see we're social distancing in that photo because three of them were AGD residents, and then the two girls, so me and that the other girl, we were the implant fellows, and we were in it during COVID, when COVID started. And so then we had to take the picture a little bit further away from each other. So that was at SIU. I had some awesome opportunities when I was there. I did CBCT guided implant placement. So as you can see here, if you look, I have the handpiece over here, and I have a marker on that handpiece, and then I have a marker on the patient's forehead. And then I'm actually, if you look, I'm not looking at all into the patient's mouth. I'm looking at this screen, which is showing me the CBCT that we took, but it basically has a bullseye on the screen, which is telling me exactly what angle I have to be holding that handpiece at so that I can press and place the implant at the right angle and depth. So that one's, it's tricky, right? Navident was the big one. Yomi is becoming a more common one nowadays. But if you ever see it, I, would definitely suggest going over to a booth or whatever if you're at a dental convention and seeing what it's like. But it's quite an investment, but a really cool thing to be able to place implants as precisely and effectively as possible. I did private practice for 2 years. And then after that, I found this opportunity to go to the VA. I never knew that you could be a dentist at the VA, and I could talk about it all day. I absolutely love it. This is where I practice now. So I'm on the ninth floor up in this area right here. And I practice 4 days a week now over here, and then 1 day a week in our other location, and which is still within St. Louis, but a different part of it. And I get to serve our nation's veterans, and it's very awkward when, they tell me like, "Oh, thank you for serving us." And I'm like, "No, no, no. Like, I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you." So, it really is such an honor. And if anyone has ever thought about it or has any questions about it, I'm more than happy to answer them. It's amazing because I don't have to worry about, selling anyone anything. I'm not worried about insurance. I literally get to do exactly what is right for that patient and treat them. If they need a root canal, fine. If they need an implant, fine. Whatever it is, I can provide for them and not have to worry about discussing money. And I just, get to treat these people who have sacrificed so much for us. And this is the least that I can do for them. So I am very involved in organized dentistry, and I am actually going to be the chair of our scientific or council on scientific sessions and plan our mid-continent dental convention next year. So we're in the middle of planning it now. So if you guys find yourself in St. Louis next September, NDX has a booth over there. So we would be more than happy to have you. And then in 2028, I will be president of the Greater St. Louis Dental Society. So very excited for that. In 2023, I was very fortunate to be selected as one of the ADA's top 10 under 10. So basically top 10 dentists less than 10 years out of dental school in the entire country. And that was quite an honor that I, was unexpected and very thankful for. And, I share it because there's just so many things that you can do with dentistry, which I will discuss, and you can really make such a big impact on people's lives. And if I can, help inspire one of you guys today, or, people that I have in the past and hopefully in the future, that makes all the difference. And because it's just, dentistry is just such an awesome profession that has its good parts and its bad parts, and we'll get into all of that. But it really is, a profession that provides for a great living, quality of life, and I am very thankful to be a part of it. So this is when at the award ceremony when I received the award, and of course my two number one supporters were right by my side. And just this past September, I was selected for the International College of Dentists and inducted into that. So now I actually have to add DMD, MHSA, FICD, LMNOP. But being a fellow, it's the top 3% of dentists in the country that are selected to be within this fellowship. So it really is an honor to be able to be recognized for things that I do, but really a lot of everything that I do is just because I enjoy it, and that's something that I really want to stress to you all. Don't put more on your plate, that than you need to, and make sure that every choice that you make is something that you are very happy doing, because that's what's going to give you that good quality of life. So I believe, last but not least, as Jessica had mentioned, I am the editor-in-chief of Get Lit, which is a newsletter that goes out to over 22,000 dental professionals, mainly new dentists. So, you can scan that QR code and um, join, subscribe to it. But every Wednesday, we come out with the newsletter, and there's just so much to learn from it, from how to start a new practice, how to run your practice, business stuff, clinical things. We have Panky that contributes to our clinical corner. And it's just a really information packed newsletter that I hope you guys could all take advantage of as well. So, repeat dental school or get a root canal. And this is not technically me, but I unfortunately I can't see you all and you can't raise your hands, but curious how many of you guys feel this way. How many of you would choose to repeat dental school, and how many of you would choose to get a root canal? Dental school is just the foundation of this profession. You really learn, a very little amount to be able to sorry, to be able to kind of like step foot in the puddle. Now I'm like Jessica and I'm coughing. Sorry. So you're just kind of stepping into that little puddle instead of swimming in that pool that is going to allow you to do so much with dentistry. You really don't know what you don't know when you're when you're in dental school and barely getting out of it. And I cannot stress the importance of doing some sort of residency like an AEGD or GPR if you didn't get the chance to. Obviously, that's a little bit harder to go back to once you start making money. But if any of you are, still in dental school and trying to make that decision, I can't stress it enough. And if you're thinking about specializing, my endodontist that my dad worked with when he was in private practice, he did general dentistry for 10 years and then went back to endo school. So you can still be whatever you want to be, no matter how old you are. So don't forget about that. So if anyone has any questions, like we said, please put them in the chat box because I'd really, really like to address them. And I do have the chat box open on the side, so I'm going to try to kind of keep an eye out for it. But if, like I said, there's anything that you really want to make sure that I hit, please put that in there. It does not bother me, and I'll try to answer them as I go. If not, definitely at the end. So everything happens for a reason at the time that it should. And we all have our own paths. And so I want you to kind of remember that, because you might get frustrated that something's not working out. Maybe you're not getting a job that you want. Maybe you're in the middle of being an associate and you really want to be an owner and you're not finding that right office to buy, or you're just super overwhelmed by the financial aspects of it, whatever it is. Or you, like what happened to me was I thought I had a job lined up, straight out of my implant fellowship. And then I kind of had the rug taken out from under me, and I got that opportunity taken away. And it ended up being the biggest favor that could have happened, because I was then able to, I looked in St. Louis. I wasn't looking as local to where I live. And I found this office in St. Louis that gave me great opportunities when I was in private practice. And I learned a lot from that particular office. And by being in St. Louis, I got to become such a big part of the Greater St. Louis Dental Society, which is where I met the chief of the dental service at the VA, and that's how I got that opportunity. So, I remember when that job opportunity, the first one, didn't work out for me. I was very upset, and I just kept trying to remind myself everything happens for a reason at the time that it should. And I might not understand what that reason is right now, but in the future, I will. And like now, the Missouri Dental Association and Greater St. Louis were the ones that nominated me for becoming, ADA's 10 under 10, as well as the ICD fellow. And so all of these opportunities came from this one thing that didn't work out for me. And so I want to remind you guys of that. Just, don't put that extra pressure on yourself that you might not need to. Okay. Because like I said, we all have our own paths. We all make stuff work in our own ways, because there's not one cookie cutter way of being a dentist or being successful or whatever it might be. So always surround yourself with those who are where you want to be, as they will help you get there. I can't stress that enough. When I was in dental school, I went and I met my mentor, David Rice. It was a Saturday morning at UF. So, like I said, I went to LECOM. So, UF was 3 hours away. And I drove up to UF the night before, and it was pouring rain, pouring rain, horrible storm. I was surprised that I even got there. And UF was having this business symposium. And I got there in the morning, and I heard David Rice speak for literally 20 minutes. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, I want to be just like him. And I walked up to him and I literally said that. And he ended up, like I said, becoming, one of my biggest mentors, one of my biggest cheerleaders. And he helped me start something called Ignite Pre-Dent, where while I was in dental school, I helped thousands of pre-dental students with getting into dental school. I got to lecture around the country. Got to put me in front of people like you all. And now I get to lecture around the country as a dentist about dental implants. And so it really, uh, by surrounding myself with someone like him, and then being able to be introduced to people like Jessica, and people from NDX, Mark Hyman, like all of these great people in our professional field, I was able to be successful and do things that make me happy, such as talking to you all today. So here's, some of the people that have been such big influences in my life. The biggest one in the lower left-hand corner being my dad. That was a picture when I was in dental school. Someone caught it where my dad was actually, he was whispering to me in Romanian. I was doing my first extractions and he was telling me what to do. And it was really fun to have that experience with him. And Pete Dawson in the middle there. If you guys haven't learned anything about occlusion, please learn, whether it's Dawson, Pankey, Coyce, Spear. These are great courses that you can take and curriculums. NDX offers great curriculums on their educational platform. I've gone through it, and it's just, there's so many CE courses that you should be taking. I mean, I definitely feel like maybe doing at least 2 webinars a month is definitely something good, for not because you need CE, but because if you learn just one thing from all of this, you are going to be so much better. So David Rice is in that lower right hand corner, Mark Hyman on the upper right, Charles McKelvey from the ADA is on that upper left, and just so many great people in my life that I'm very thankful to have on my path. So something I really want to stress, and I can't, if you haven't gotten this already, please tomorrow figure it out, even though it's Friday, but put it on your to-do list for Monday. But find your business team before you start working, okay? So before I even got my first paycheck, I went and I found a financial advisor, a dental experienced CPA, and a lawyer. And I made sure that I had those people in my back pocket. And I spoke with the financial advisor and I said, do whatever you need to do to put all my ducks in a row, and, take out for disability, take out for life insurance, retirement, and start taking out that money, because I never want to see that money. Because the moment, well, I want to see it later, but I don't want to see it right now. Because the moment that you start getting a paycheck, and let's say it's, I don't know, whatever, it's $5,000, and you get that paycheck, and then you're like, oh, okay, let me, set this all up, and then now all of a sudden your paycheck is $3,500. That's a tough pill to swallow, okay? And you're like, well, I was living a $5,000 lifestyle, and now you're telling me to live a $3,500 lifestyle. Not as easy. So try to get all of your ducks in a row from the beginning, if not now, so that you can take care of not even getting used to that money and know that you're going to be safe. God forbid something happens, if it's disability or, in the future when you start having children, if that's something that you want, or, planning for retirement so that you don't have to live in fear that, oh my God, am I going to have enough money for retirement? Now, this is a lesson that my dad taught me, and I share it with everybody. 10% oops, sorry, got excited there. Every single paycheck, I put away 10% of my paycheck into my savings account. I don't see that money either. I have everything set up at the VA so that, and you can do this, in private practice or wherever you are, where you can, once you get your paycheck in, you take, the bank will put 10% in your savings and the rest in your checking. And now I know that I have that money that just in case, God forbid, anything happens, I'm solid. Okay. It's something that when you need it, you're very glad that you have it. And so it's just best to start collecting that now again, so that you're not used to having that money to spend, but also to just know for peace of mind that if something, God forbid, ever happens, you're prepared and ready to go. Know your limits. So you're a new dentist, you think you can, do a lot of stuff because they taught you it in a lecture in dental school. And so now you know. Wrong. So really understand that when you have a patient in the chair, and they ask you like a question about whatever, how some bonding adhesive works, and you're just like, I don't know, that wasn't my thing. Like, but I'll find out for you, because there are people that are going to ask you that. Or if, a patient is saying, well, I really, really, really want you to fix this tooth. Like, please fix this tooth. I know you can do it with the filling. You don't need to do it with the crown or whatever it is. Know your limits and know that I can't do this. This is something that is not going to work out for, my capabilities. And what I tell people is I need to be able to sleep at night. And that is a very truthful statement that you can use, because it's something that people are going to resonate with, hopefully. And normal people will, and they'll understand, like, hey, I'd rather have this person be honest with me and say, like, I need to, I don't feel comfortable doing this because I need to sleep at night, and I don't want to wake up thinking about, oh my gosh, what did I do to that person's tooth? I wonder how long it's going to stay. So this this is just, I like putting in some funny memes from time to time, but this definitely is what I do all the time. Alone, put that glove, and then in front of other doctors. That's what it feels like. And so, imagine if, other doctors are seeing your work, because you're going to, your patient's going to different practices for whatever reason, even if it's just, the specialist versus you want to make sure that you're doing your treatment correctly and you're doing it within the boundaries that you're comfortable with, because people are going to unfortunately judge you off of it. So anyone notice anything special in this picture, in this x-ray? So I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. So this patient came into my office. This is when I was in private practice, and the panel pulled up, and I looked at that double implant and freaked out. And I was like, oh my God, she's probably numb. This is probably why she's here. It's just a mess. I can't believe this. I said, I wanted to take a CBCT, and I, just look at how much of a miracle that is, of how that was placed. But I sat down, I talked to the patient, and I was like, hey, like, anything funky on that lower left side? And she's like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh, you don't, do you feel stuff, and she's like, yeah, no problems. And she had no idea, none whatsoever, that she had two implants there. And then on top of it all, it's an implant to root canal bridge, which just makes me so happy. And the sarcasm if you didn't get that one. But what probably happened was, hopefully just an honest mistake where the dentist probably didn't change the speed when they went to go put in that implant. and it went straight down. And then instead of, telling the patient what happened and sending them to an oral surgeon, who knows what the circumstances were? Maybe there wasn't a surgeon close by, or maybe it was an oral surgeon. I don't know. They placed another one. So, again, know your limits. This person was very lucky. I hope they, realize that. But be careful, especially with dental implants. Everyone wants to place implants now. Everyone. And it's not easy. And that's something that I learned in my fellowship. I learned the way that things go wrong. And implants are not for everyone. At the end of the day, it's a screw that goes into your joint. Yeah, in your jaw, and not joint, hold on, a jaw. And it's just it's it's just not for everybody. And especially at the VA, like I have veterans ask left and right, I want implants, I want implants. And then I look and their A1C is 11.6. They just got off of, IV bisphosphonate, and their blood pressure is up the roof, and they smoke. And they're like, well, I know, but I want implants. Like, because my cousin Mary, twice removed, she had implants and they work great for her. And I'm like, well, that's nice, but it's not going to be the case for you. And you have to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations with patients to explain to them, like, hey, I'm sorry, but this is not for you. Someone will place it, I'm sure, but it's not going to be me. So again, know your limits and what you should be comfortable with. So this was a veteran that came into me at the VA, and he had all of his upper teeth done. I'm sure you can sense, and all of those upper zirconia crowns took down all of those lower teeth. And so, he did have some issues with GERD as well, but that is an extreme amount of wear on those lower teeth. And so, I was nervous. I'm like, well, that's like kind of, a full mouth rehab over here. Like, is that something I should be touching? And, I had, like I said, done that, had my experience through my AEGD. I had done some Pankey and some Dawson courses, not the full curriculum, but, enough to know where I should and shouldn't, dip my toes in. And I knew that I didn't have to really raise his vertical, because if you look, and you'll see a better picture in a moment, but you can see that those second molars are pretty much untouched. And so I'm like, all right, like I don't really have to bring up that vertical way too much, but I just kind of need to make an even playing field. So I can't really screw up his joint, which is a good thing. So here's an occlusal view, and you can see, how those second molars are untouched. You can see those tori, and just how the arch form looks. And this was after I prepped all of the teeth, except for those second molars. Again, there's really no use for me to touch any of them, because I didn't need to raise anything to their level. And here were the crowns once they were placed. And this was literally right after I delivered them. And so he was a very happy camper. Obviously, we wanted to match the top to the bottom. You can, if you look, number 11 is cracked. So that one ended up being changed as well. But, and I changed 6 and 11 because I wanted to create more canine guidance to protect his front teeth and, not create all that wear that he had in the first place. But it was a very hard case to do, especially at the VA, where we have wait times for 4 months. And, between when we deliver, or when we prep something and we deliver, we have to wait a very long time for the lab, because it has to go through, so like 6 weeks for quality control. And so you have to learn how to make really good temps. And so I learned a lot from this case, and I don't regret it. This case was done about 2 years ago, and he comes in, and I get to see him, and I get to see that nothing's popped off, and I say thank God, and we move forward. So here's some guides that you can download. I just kind of put this in here to help you out for different things that, if you are interested in a residency, or if you are interested in the Beyond Graduation ebook is a very good book, which kind of talks about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now, like what would you do in situations, and whether it's treatment planning, whether it's, how to deal with a patient that's screaming at you or whatever it is. That's what that book is really good for. And then the residency guide has hundreds of residencies around the country, that we have all the info that you could want, how many root canals were done, average implants, yada, yada, yada. So, bread and butter, the basics. Everyone wants to do these big cases, and you get really upset because that patient didn't accept your treatment plan and all of that stuff. And then you have to go back to those bread and butter, that bread and butter dentistry, and you have to be really good at it. But I think that like this is harder than, doing a crown prep, because getting those darn contacts as perfect as possible, making it nice and, round, and getting your little marginal ridge, and like, every single class two never looks like the other one. And so I feel like I said, class twos are pretty much the hardest thing in dentistry, maybe at times, because it's, you would think it's something that's so easy because it's something you do so often, but they're so ever changing that it can be really difficult. So take courses, that are going to, and whether it's hands-on courses or whether it's, these webinars where you can learn about, how to place the wedge properly, what size wedge to place, what contour of the matrix band, what matrix systems, like all of these things. You think that you learned them in dental school, and it's like, I took the class, I did so many on the type it on, I'm good. No, there's always, always, always things to learn. And I can't harp on that enough of learning how to do it the best, sandwich technique, what kind of flowable, what materials, all of these things are stuff that it's not that I've done it and, it's a one and done sort of things. It's something that, it's always developing, and there's ways for you to make it better. So get really good at your limited exams. I remember when I started in private practice, I struggled a lot with limited exams because I'm like, how am I supposed to, just diagnose one tooth and like tell the patient like, oh yeah, number 15, it has a big, cavity on it. But then I'm also noticing that down here you have a whole mess, of stuff, and your tongue ring is constantly, chipping this tooth, and, can you fix, I want to tell them about all of this, but maybe they don't want to hear me. So you have to be able to say, maybe ask for permission, like, hi, I've noticed, that yes, you came in here for pain on this tooth, but I've noticed some other issues. Would it be okay if I shared these with you right now? Or would you like to have a conversation about them at a separate time once we get you out of pain? So that's a really good way of opening up that conversation where you can change a limited exam to a comprehensive exam. Like I said, posterior composites, can't harp them on them enough. Emergencies, changing that emergency patient into a full-time patient is an art that, we should master. Numbing people, I have a lot of little techniques. I mean, I do make a lot of jokes. I tell people like, just close your eyes. I'll close mine too. It's fine. And then, you get them giggling a little bit. And, there's other techniques like I have where I talk in a very monotone voice, and I make sure that the room is quiet. I don't like, any music or anything while I'm numbing, and I just hold my hand as stable as possible. I'm someone who does not like the whole shaking the cheek thing. It makes me nervous. I'm not that coordinated. And I just talk in a very monotone voice, and I just say like, okay, so we're about halfway there. Just keep breathing through your nose, wiggle your toes, and that really like, distracts a patient, calms them down. And I, do tend to get in a lot of compliments on how I anesthetize. So try and find, ways, because those are people that are, again, going to come back to you like, man, I didn't feel a thing. It was great. And, I'm going to go tell, my buddy over here to come over. And then treatment planning. Frank Spear, he has an amazing course at the Spear Institute about treatment planning, the art of treatment planning. I would highly suggest that you take that course. But it's, again, you think like, oh, there's a tooth, there's a cavity. I'm just going to fill that cavity with the filling or a crown, and it's fine. But you're not thinking about the mouth as a whole, and that's something you definitely need to. So choose your materials and lab wisely. So, don't cheapen out on stuff. And, if you're working in different types of offices and whatnot, they might make you choose a certain way of doing dentistry and certain materials. And so I understand that you might have limitations, but really try to fight to be able to use, materials that work well in your hands also, because there are great materials on the market, but I don't like them because they're either like too rigid. I like something a little bit softer. It just happens to work better in my hands. So I like using whatever material instead of something else. But again, these are things that are supposed to last for these patients. And if you aren't, spending your money where you need to, and you're not, using a lab that is going to provide quality work, then you're going to have patients be upset and come back and tell you, oh my God, my crown broke, and it's, the insurance isn't going to pay for it for another 5 years, and you're just going to cause yourself a major headache when you could have just invested at the beginning, kind of like that saying with, measure twice and cut once. So, pay twice the amount, I don't know, and and then not have any problems. So here's a case. This was actually my hygienist's husband, and he fell riding a bike, and it was a Wednesday, our day off, and he came in and I took care of him. And again, you cannot see, where that transition line is. I mean, I feel like we could probably see it because our eyes are trained for that. But even so, like most people are not going to see it. And this one I used Tokuyama's Omnichroma, and he still has it, still looking great. And Tokuyama even chose it to be in their book. And so, it's just really, making the right choices with your composite materials, with, bone grafting materials, with, sectional matrices, whatever it is, bonding adhesives. Just, make sure that you're doing the right thing by your patients. So here's some other cases where, again, you could just see regular composite. I still see that screw access hole to that implant, but the Omnichroma, I barely see it. And the patient loves it even more, because you will have patients, if you haven't already, that are going to look at all of these little things. One more case with the traumatic class 4. But protect yourself for the long run. And this is a slide that I just put in actually recently, because I just got ergonomic loops. And so I'm not going to, say like, oh, this company is better than the other one, because I haven't tried any of them except for the one that I have. But I can't stress enough, now that I've been using them for a week and a half, it is a huge difference. I mean, a huge difference. And I would highly suggest looking into this, because I have had so many neck issues, neck and shoulder, where I just constant pain, trying every single pillow that you can think of to get rid of that pain. And even like getting to the point where if I am driving and I just turn my head really quickly to look to see if someone's on my side, like my neck just cracks, and it is just so painful, where like I feel like a spasm through my body. And so I've been using these loops now, and you just literally are looking straight, and then, or your head is straight, and then you look down. And I remember when I was trying to pick the frames, I sent my assistant a picture. I was like, you have to look at me the most, so you tell me, like, do these frame colors look good? And instead of having your head down like this, it's amazing to see just what a difference it makes from having your head down all the way like this to being straight forward. Because even now when I look at my phone, I won't even look down at my phone anymore. I just kind of hold it up like this, because I'm like, no, this is better for my neck, and I haven't had these issues anymore. So build relationships with your specialists that you work with. I can't tell you enough how great it is to build a relationship where you have their cell phone number, and if you're ever having an issue with taking a tooth out or doing a root canal or whatever it is, and you can quickly get them on the phone and be like, hey, can you help me out? I remember I had one issue in private practice where this lady's like buccal fat started coming out of her cheek, and I was doing an extraction. I was like, what the heck? Like, how did the incision isn't even there? Like, I don't get it. And it looks like cottage cheese. It's disgusting. And I like took a couple pictures, obviously remained calm in front of the patient. And I sent, a picture to one of the oral surgeons that I work with. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? She's like, shove it back in. And I was like, okay. And so I just, start shoving that thing back in, and then it's hard. But then, you suture it up and it heals great. But being honest with the patient when things happen is another really big thing that I need to harp on, because anytime that you're honest, a lot more people are going to be accepting of what happened, and you're less likely to get sued. But definitely have a good malpractice carrier. But yeah, building those relationships with specialists, building them with reps. I love being able to call my reps, especially my implant reps, just like I said, a text, of, hey, is this the right implant, number, or, hey, can you run over here because I need a little bit of help with this, or I need another implant that I don't have in stock. Can you run it over here because you have some in your car? Those are things that are great. And actually, because of the relationships with the reps that I have, one of the reps was the one that was able to get me my job in private practice. So can't thank him enough for that one. Other new dentists, you are not alone. Okay, going to like a new dentist event that your local dental society is putting on, or at a dental convention, any new dentist things, make friends with people so that you guys could, talk about all of the stuff that happened, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or talk about like, hey, what would you do in this case? Whatever it is, build those relationships with the other new dentists, because it's really good to have them and to just have someone who understands you in that way. Dental organizations, like I said, actually someone that heard me speak, and he's part of the Greater St. Louis Dental Society. He was the one that nominated me for the I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. He was the one that nominated me for International College of Dentists. And so, having, again, those types of relationships can take you in places that you never could have imagined. And dental labs. I I have numerous times sent my dental lab like, hey, can you look at this impression? And I take a little picture and a video of it. Like, is this good enough? Did this capture what you need to capture? Having those relationships are just so important. And I know that, you can create those on your own. So here's a case that I did where the implant rep was super involved with this one, but this is a case that I love to share. So if you've heard me speak before, you might have seen this case. But this patient presented, 71-year-old female. This was in my fellowship. And her chief concern was, I want to be able to chew a pork chop because now I can only chew a filet mignon. So, like, first world problems. One of the best chief concerns still to this day that I've ever heard. And I worked very closely with the lab, and we did something called Chrome Full Arch Guided Stability, where we were able to basically take out all of her teeth and create an all-on six in her situation, and prosthesis. And it just was an amazing case to be in charge of. And it was my first time doing such a big case, and you'll get to see the outcome. But these are what's called, I won't go into a whole implant lesson. That's another story for another day. But these are, if you ever heard of like stackable guides, this is what it is, because you can stack these on top of one another. This is your base. And I'll show you in a minute how it looks. So this was how she, not how she came in, obviously, but day of surgery, laid our flap, and you can see what her teeth look like a little bit better. And now we're putting our pin guide in place. So basically this section is stopping where the teeth are so that it tells me exactly how far down this fixation base needs to go. And then I kind of start putting these pins in with a little mallet and then screwing these ones in to kind of hold everything. And, obviously digitally, we've designed all of this so that we're not going through any nerves or arteries. So now I've taken that plastic part off, and now this is what I'm left with. And I want you to just, if you haven't done any of this, or if this interests you, or if you're, again, story for another day, but thinking about hybrids versus conus versus traditional dentures, whatever, everything that you see right now is going to go away. So not only just the teeth, but all of this bone as well, which just makes me cringe. So yeah, hybrids are not my favorite thing to do, because you have to take away a lot in order to make room for all of those parts. But there's other things that you can do in place. But all of this bone went away, mowed it all down, and now put in the osteotomy guide. So now the implants got placed through these holes at certain angles. And then here we have the prosthetic carrier. And so basically we have multi-unit abutments that are going in, and these screw in. And then now I'm going to put the temporary hybrid over it after I put these gaskets on so that we don't get acrylic everywhere. And then now the temporary hybrid is in there, and then we're going to fill all of this with an acrylic pink. And then the implant rep was very comfortable with doing lab work because he had some experience with that, and he reshaped everything and made the temp look really pretty while I sutured everything up. So here was after I sutured everything up. So I put healing abutments just so that I could still access where those implants were, so I can put the temporary back in there. Unfortunately, one of the implants didn't get the amount of torque that I wanted, so I just let it sit and heal on its own, and I didn't engage it in that temporary. This tooth ended up getting taken out, number 31, but she was a little bit tired that day because she was awake for everything. So we didn't take out that tooth. It needed a retreat, and she didn't want to go through with it. So here she was immediately after, and this was a week after, and we made her a valplast for the lower. But this was her final hybrid. I did not make the final hybrid. The next fellow did because of COVID, but not one I would have ideally chosen. I would have made the teeth look a little bit more feminine, but to each their own. She was really happy, even though she chipped that little one, and she was really bummed about it. But she let me take some pictures of her a couple years later because I wanted to have some pictures that I could show all of you. So these are things that you can do as a general dentist, but again, use wisely, my friends. So give your best, but remember it might not be the same each day. So I just want you to remember, work hard, obviously play hard, but realize like, man, sometimes like my hands just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And again, like I said, with honesty, if a class 2 or a crown prep or whatever doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, be honest with the patient and just say like, hey, I finished this, this filling of yours, but it's just not my favorite filling. And I know it's kind of inconvenient, but I would really like if I could see you in, a couple of days and redo it so that, I can make sure that it looks the way that I want it to look. And someone's going to respect you so much more for that. And because again, you're still a human being. And that's something that a lot of us as doctors don't really realize. So know that you have opportunities. So one thing is you can be an associate dentist. You can work in organized dentistry. So we've talked about this a little bit already. Oh gosh, sorry, all my windows are blocking my tidbits to you all. You can be a KOL, so a key opinion leader for dental companies. That's a lot of fun because you get to try stuff out before other people and give your opinions a lot of times. You can work for an insurance and deal with dental claims. You can be in the armed forces. You can do research. So I'm just, I'm trying to tell you guys, because maybe you haven't thought about this kind of stuff. And maybe, this is some stuff that maybe you want to do on the side, consulting, editor-in-chief of a newsletter. You can work for corporate. You can be a speaker. You can also be a writer. A lot of people, they're looking for writers for their, newsletters or journals or whatever they might be. You can not go to prison, but work for a prison. That'll also help pay off your loans. You can work for a school district. This is something that I learned this year from a friend of mine that now she goes to schools and she takes care of kids at the schools and does all of their dental treatment, which is pretty cool. Not for me though. That's why I work with vets. But I love children to death. But when it comes on working on them, I don't know. It's like I have two left hands. You can be an owner. You can work for an FQHC. You can do forensic odontology. That's something that always fascinated me until I found out and experienced myself how horrible a dead body smells, especially when it comes out of a Florida lake. Group practice. You can work at the VA, academia, you can specialize, just so many things that you can do with dentistry. But you want to make sure that you create value for for your patients. And just like, you can tell them, well, maybe not tell them quite, but you have to pay to play, but so do your patients. So, don't skip out on yourself by saying, oh, I'll just do this for free. Like, no, this is your time, this is your effort, this is your knowledge. Make sure that you charge appropriately and make sure that, you don't just start giving everything away for free just because you feel bad or whatever it is. Obviously there's those occasions from time to time, but you want to make sure that you're still valuing your time and your education and your skills so that you can provide the best for your patients. And because if you create value, then those patients are going to see you as a value and see your time as a value and not no show on you or not understand like, yeah, it is going to cost me that much, but that's because I know that it's being done right. So we're getting near the end here, but one big thing, this is like my big motto, is just show up. You never know who you're going to meet somewhere. You're never going to know what opportunity you're going to get. That's how I was also inducted into the Pierre Fauchard Academy, and that was just because I showed up at a dinner with a academy or at a after an AGD meeting, and the person that I was sitting next to was the Illinois section chair of the Pierre Fauchard Academy, and I became like one of the youngest people out of dental school to ever be inducted in it. And again, you never know who you're going to meet and get these opportunities that you never would have imagined. So show up to something, you'll learn something, I promise you. Like I said, that saying, if I want to be able to sleep at night, I can't stress that enough. Do right by your patients, do right by yourself, and remember to like take a break because that's something that we, like I said, tend to forget that we're human beings as dentists. Find balance, avoid burnout, be able to, go places that you want to, live in an area that you're happy living in. Don't be miserable, and create a life for yourself that you enjoy. So like this was me, January 3rd, 2025, I was in Hawaii, and then 2 days later I was in the snow. Um, so I get to have a little bit of both worlds, but find that balance and enjoy that life for yourself. So if you ever want to reach out, please feel free to follow me on Instagram, send me an email, or you can scan that QR code and that'll give you my cell phone number, and you don't have to download anything, and you can just, shoot me a text message. But I'm here to help you with anything that you might have a question about, but I hope that you learned something from this evening.